point game. That didn't go at all like we expected. So, what a difference. Welcome back, by the way. We're back. We took a week off. Holiday. Did you have a good Christmas? Did you have a good holiday?
I did. I did. We talked about in our last episode was 3 games ago.
I know. That's what I was going to get to, is that it's been a
So
crazy 7 days, how the winds can
yeah,
change.
and back last time we recorded, I was talking about how my kids were sick and I've been stuck at home. Well, it all paid off. Everyone was healthy for Christmas. We had hosted my family here at our house for Christmas Eve. Went over to the in-laws on Christmas Day. Toys and presents everywhere. I got a new Packers hat.
Mm-hmm.
Got some nice stuff for Christmas. But overall, it was enjoyable spending time with family. So
Good. Good. Well, now we're back in the studio. We're
yeah,
talking Packers football, and like I said, in a span of 7 days, we went from absolutely demolishing the New Orleans Saints, 34-0. Packers do the first shutout of the entire NFL season. Monday Night Football, prime time. I know I'm riding high. You're riding high. Getting ready for this Vikings matchup, and whoop, the rug was pulled out from underneath us once again. Packers fall to the Vikings 27-25. They are now 1-4 in the division. The
jeez.
last they've only been swept by the Lions and the Vikings twice throughout their illustrious 102 seasons of football. One in 2017 and then as far back as 1975. So we both had in our predictions, we thought for sure we'd at least split these matchups against the Lions and the Vikings. That did not come to fruition. And we're going to get into all sorts of things when it comes to, where the Packers are heading into the playoffs and these teams that we're probably going to have to inevitably face that defeated us and handed us all of our losses throughout the regular season. I guess you checked out of that game. And by the way, we're recording this on Monday night. We don't typically do that, but with the New Year's on Tuesday, this is a game that we don't have a ton of notes for, but it's definitely very fresh in our heads because it was only 24 hours ago that the game happened. So you threw your hat in the ring surprisingly earlier than I did in that game yesterday. I just want to throw that out there because I had some hope. I didn't. I'm usually I could have said as soon as Jacobs fumbled it on the first drive, I could have been like, that's the game. It could have been when they had the failed fourth down attempt, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, more. That I could have been like, there's the game. But I felt like they had a chance. And the reality is they had no business being in this game. So let me stop rambling. What went wrong? What went wrong in Minnesota on Sunday? Can you
It
put it into
was.
words?
I mean, both sides of the ball. The offense couldn't get anything moving. The one drive that they had a decent thing going, Jacobs started churning and getting some chunk yardage plays, but that was all the life I saw out of the offense. I mean, Love's numbers were terrible. Like not necessarily bad decisions, or I don't even think he had that bad of a completion percentage, but there were drop balls, just nothing going for the offense. And then the defense, there was nothing they could do to stop the Vikings. I mean, they'd get them to a third down, third and not short necessarily. And it seemed like every time the Vikings were in that position, someone was wide open. Like,
Yeah.
it was an easy first down every time.
Yeah.
And so it just got really frustrating every time. It looked like the Packers were going to finally get a stop and turn things around. They just gave it up. And so at that, I don't even know what point. It was sometime in the third quarter. I I got up off the couch and I said to my wife, I said, "Game's over. I'm going to go make dinner." And then I texted you right after that. I was literally standing in front of my stove I was going to start making dinner. And I texted you. I'm like, shutting the TV off. Game's over. And then and then you responded right away and you're like, "Really? Even after that interception?" I was like, "Oh shit." And that pick must have been like I must have hit the power button on the TV
Yep.
and they picked it off right then. Because then I quick pulled it up on my phone, and the next play that I saw was Josh Jacobs running it in for a touchdown. So I was like, oh, okay, all right, this is a little bit better. Like that was the one, the one point in the game where I was like, oh man, there's a little bit of life here. Like, maybe defense gets a stop now, momentum shifting a little bit. But the rest of the game was a lot of the same on defense. Offense got it going a little bit, but was that because Vikings started playing prevent defense and just didn't want to give up the big play, let them eat up the clock? It was just a frustrating game to watch because they had played so well. I mean, the Saints game is one thing, yeah. I mean, but the Saints are a shell of a team at this point. But that Seahawks game was very encouraging. Packers looked good. They continued it on through the Saints game and crushed them. And so it just had hopes that this would be at least a closer matchup. I felt like the Packers were a different team going into this second matchup with the Vikings, but it really was basically the exact same game that we saw earlier in the season against the Vikings at Lambeau. Exact same game. Packers down by a bunch. They claw their way back to within 2 points, but then the defense can't prevent them from getting a first down. So Vikings get a first down, run the clock out, game over. Same thing happened last time. It was just frustrating the whole night.
It would have been nice to at least see them stop Minnesota there and get the ball back, and more for my curiosity of, okay, what can Jordan Love and this offense do with less than 2 minutes in the game, no timeouts? Can they get the ball down the field? I mean, we feel confident enough with McManus that if we get into range, it's probably a pretty high probability. It's redundant that they make that game-winning field goal. But
how long kick that McManus made in this game earlier in the game? He had a pretty long field goal early in the game.
He had a
50 some yards,
22-yarder, and then no, he only had one field goal.
Maybe I'm thinking of the Saints game.
He might be. You probably are. He had a banger in that game.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm thinking of.
And he was cold, and I think that was like 50-plus yards. So for the record, there were 7 minutes and 15 seconds left in the third quarter when you threw your hat.
Oh, you time-stamped it? You time-stamped it?
I'm just looking at the play-by-play of when that interception happened. So it was right around 7.5 minutes in the third quarter left. Which, kudos to you. I don't know. Like I said, for whatever reason, I was holding on. I felt like if we could just kind of get things going, that anything's possible. And it really wasn't until the Packers started the ball down, what were they, 27-10 to start the fourth quarter, and they had the ball. And I'm like, okay, if we can get some points, make this a 10-point game, that's 2 touchdowns in our last 2 possessions, and we'll just continue to score, and we have a shot. But when that didn't happen. They punted the ball away, and that was when I essentially threw my hat in. Now, I still watched the game. I saw them do their little comeback thing and make it interesting, but I just knew that we were going to run out of time, and it was the exact same thing. To your point, like we ran into Minnesota in week 4, was, they're playing better, but there's just not enough time on the clock. So I guess if you had to kind of pinpoint it down to one particular thing, like I have a slow start, I have play calling, lack of pass rush, the injuries. I think injuries did play a factor in this game, or the 2 4th down decisions, which I will go to the grave with my 4th down decisions. One being they kick a field goal on 4th and goal on the 3-yard line. It's 0-0 at that point. I was okay with that. In the moment, I'm like, fine, let's take the points, let's go. And then they go for it on 4th and 2 on Minnesota 23-yard line, where they should have kicked a field goal. That's more of a Matt LaFleur kick a field goal situation. Down 3-7 at that point, but listening to LaFleur's press conference, he knows that they cannot get behind in this game. I think that messed with his normal thought process that we got to pick this up. We got to get a touchdown on the board. Otherwise, Minnesota's going to, continue to go. So out of all that list, you're feel free to check any of those. Is there a certain thing that you'd pinpoint to our demise?
I think a big one is the pass rush, the lack
Yeah,
thereof pass rush. It was, I mean,
rushing.
Darnold had all the time in the world, and we had talked about it. Actually, maybe we haven't because we haven't talked in a while. But that Seahawks game, the pass rush was ruthless. I mean, Geno Smith or Sam Howell, whoever was back there during that game, they had zero time to throw. The Saints game, I guess I don't really. That game was kind of on in the background after the Packers went up by 3 touchdowns in the first
Yeah,
first quarter,
I
basically.
I fell asleep. I missed the
Oh
last
yeah,
touchdown. Yeah, I think I passed out on the couch.
yeah.
Been doing too many yellow shots.
I didn't watch it watch very closely a ton of that Saints game. So, and as far as pass rush goes in the Saints game, it wasn't needed. You know, it wasn't a necessity. But the lack of pass rush against the Vikings was huge because, like I said, it seemed like they'd get to that third down point. Vikings would be, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. It's like, okay, got to get some pressure on him. Can't give him time. No pressure, and then someone was always wide open. And the on the broadcast, the commentators were pointing out how Justin Jefferson, just his presence, pulls defenders. There was multiple times where Xavier McKinney was kind of pulled towards Jefferson, and that left someone wide open. You got to adjust. I understand that you're trying to give help for on the arguably the best wide receiver in the league, but you're giving up first down after first down after first down. There's no pass rush. He's got plenty of time to throw it, got plenty of time for that guy to get open and the play to develop. That was the most frustrating part to me, was the defense and no pass rush.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue against that. They were continually bringing their 4-man pass rush. Rashawn Gary is completely absent this entire season. I don't know if it's this new base defense that they're running under Hafley, or if he's just lost a step, or I don't know, but he's been very ineffective at getting to the quarterback the entire season. And they were bringing 4-man rushes pretty much the entire game. And it has worked against some offensive lines. It did not work at all against Minnesota by any stretch of the imagination. They got close a couple times, but even when they got really close, Darnold, give it up to the guy. He played a hell of a game. He's had a hell of a season. He made those passes. So yeah, the pass rush is definitely a continuing worry, even if they had bright spots here and there throughout the last couple of weeks. I have to point to, go ahead.
I was going to say, now that you mention it, that you mentioned Rashawn Gary, I'd be interested to see of all the sacks this year, how many of them have come from the actual edge rushers. I
Sure.
would say majority of them have come from the interior defensive linemen who have played
Yep.
very well, and good for them for getting sacks. We talked about it weeks and weeks ago, how important it is for linemen to be able to get push and get sacks. Like Wyatt has done well, obviously Slayton, but nothing from the edge rushers, not even just Gary. I mean, Lucas Van Ness has been absent. I mean,
Yep.
there's just been nothing from the actual edge rushers, where that's their job. That's what they're supposed to do on a passing down. Obviously they have other jobs, but that's what they're there for. They're there to rush the quarterback, and it's been completely absent all season, which is, you're not going to win games that way. You got to get pressure on the quarterback.
Perhaps you get pressure on the quarterback. I was going to say, outside of the pass rush, I do look at injuries to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
So Evan Williams absent again. Bullard had a rough game for sure. Matt was, he enlightened those of us in Packers Nation on Monday that he spent most of the week practicing in nickel coverage. And then when Evan Williams was out, he moved to safety and just didn't really have a lot of those repetitions underneath his belt to prepare for the game. But then you look at Christian Watson. We obviously missed that deep threat from Watson to kind of open up some of the other players. No Quay Walker, which I'm a little bit okay with. I mean, I'd love to have the guy in there because, Cooper, my God, what an emerging star this kid's turned out to be. He he might be my new favorite player on that
Yeah.
Packers defense. Just looking at like a nice 8 to 10 year career in Green Bay, and so he looks good. And then the biggest one, obviously, again, Jair Alexander. And the more concerning news that came out on Monday was that he's having swelling in his knee. Now, I kind of predicted that this would be a game that Jair would come back and play. It was this Minnesota, kind of get ready and get for the playoffs. When asked in his press conference on Monday, Matt said that he wouldn't give an answer. It was like a no comment when asked whether or not Jair might even play any more games this season. And that's pretty concerning news to hear. It's not the kind of information that I like to gather as we enter the playoffs, because that defense does have to rely more on a 4-man rush, I think, when you don't have your star corner out there, when you don't have a healthy Evan Williams or a Quay Walker. You have to get a little bit more zonesy with your coverages. And I think that's what's been hurting them. I think that specifically hurt them against Minnesota. I'm okay. I think at the end of the day, I'm okay losing the game to Minnesota. We're in the playoffs. I'm okay if we lose to Chicago, quite frankly. I would just really like to get a healthy team as we hit the playoffs. And without Alexander as part of that equation, I'm really concerned how far they can truly get without having him on that, just shutting down one half of the field.
Yeah. But first of all, I want to make note. I think Nariah just invented a new football term, zonesy.
Zonesy.
Zonesy. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to use that from now on. And when defenses are getting zonesy. Anyway, but yeah, Jair being injured, it's frustrating. Yeah, we really expected him to be back. He practiced in full early in the week this last week. It's that whole situation is getting a little frustrating, and honestly, it's getting a little bit similar to the feeling I had with David Bakhtiari.
Yeah.
We're paying this guy all this money, but he's never on the field. Bakhtiari obviously was a different situation. He had season-ending injuries and injuries that kept him out indefinitely, right, for the whole season. Like, definitely not going to play. So this is a little bit different with Jair having a chance to play, practicing, potentially coming back. So it's slightly different. But year in and year out, it seems like Jair is very hit or miss if he's going to be on the field or not. And at some point, is it worth continuing to pay him? Is he that good of a corner to continue to pay him as much as we do for how little he's on the field? I know I think I was talking to my boss about this exact thing, and my boss is like done with Jair Alexander, like tired of it, which I can understand. Has been injured quite a bit, and it makes a difference when he's not on the field. So do we next season look for some other options, some more solid options? It's tough.
Well, these are definitely conversations that we will have when we wrap up the season and look forward to the off season.
Am I getting ahead of myself a little bit?
Yeah, and I'm hoping these are like conversations that we can have in depth, mid-February when the season ends, and not like the second week of January, sort of a thing.
After a Super Bowl victory.
Exactly. Yeah, but no, the correlation is spot on with Bakhtiari, and I think when last season Bakhtiari was still in the roster, and they brought him back for a game somewhere in that November-December timeframe, and he played maybe half the game, a couple snaps here and there, whatever the case may be, but then ultimately he couldn't go in the playoffs. It is very similar. Jair was not healthy at all of last season either. He struggled this season, and it's tough because he's a player that I know I believe that he wants to be in Green Bay, especially with this new defensive coordinator and Xavier McKinney on that roster. This is where he wants to play, but his body's failing him. And yeah, these are definitely going to be fun conversations as far as where these holes are on our roster at the end of the year and what the Packers need to look at and to address. Speaking of zonesy, though, now that that's my new term and my coined phrase, kind of like litmus test, which both Tom Brady and the other announcer said before the game kicked off. I got a kick out of that. Let's talk about Jordan Love. So, and probably the last we'll talk about Minnesota as we start to peel back the layers of the future and the playoffs and all that stuff. So, Jordan Love, we've discussed, not a great game. There's two things I want to talk about. One being that they had the camera on him a lot on the sidelines, and they showed him a lot close up throughout the game. This has been a strength of his that he never seems phased, but he also kind of looked unbothered in the wrong way to me in that Vikings game. That maybe sometimes you do need to get worked up a little bit and rally the troops and go out there and give it your best shots, everything. So that's one topic when it comes to Love. The second, going back to the zone Z side of things. So Minnesota ran a zone coverage on Sunday, 54.5% of the game. Now, this entire season, they've averaged running zone defense 77% of the time. And Jordan Love ranks third in the league against zone defense and 29th in the league against man-to-man defense. So Brian Flores over on Minnesota, they knew that. I think they kicked Matt LaFleur in the mouth with their game plan and what they were going to run on defense. Even LaFleur said in his conference Sunday night that they ran way more man than we were expecting, and we didn't adjust. We didn't have enough plays in our belt to maybe compensate for that if they decide to show that throughout the game. So I think Matt got sidetracked. Jordan Love played very poor against the zone defense. So on the topic of Jordan Love, with everything I've said, is there a concern maybe, or not full on panic mode? I'm not hitting panic button on anything with the Packers and what happened yesterday, but is there a reason to be concerned as we approach the playoffs in just 2 weeks at this point?
It's very difficult for me to say this because start of the season, I mean, we started off preseason talking about how high on Jordan Love I've been since the Packers have drafted him. But this year has been very, very disappointing. I mean, I understand he dealt with the injury early in the season. He's dealt with a few different injuries. But even when he's been healthy, I just am not seeing what I expected out of him this season. I mean, early on, poor decision making. I mean, he's played better as the season has progressed, but you get to that big game like this last matchup with the Vikings, and it's just not there. He's not performing to where he needs to for the organization and as a whole to be successful. So it's tough to admit that right now, but I'm not giving up hope by any means. Like I still am a Jordan Love fan. I think he has it in him, but I just feel like there's something. I don't know if it's the big contract and the pressure to be that star quarterback, or I don't know what it is this year, but something just doesn't seem like it's clicking with Jordan Love. And the Packers' success as of late has a lot of it's come on the back of Josh Jacobs. So Love has been kind of taken a back seat to the Josh Jacobs show, which we didn't necessarily expect that. So I don't know. I'm not giving up hope yet, but this season has been kind of disappointing from Jordan Love.
Yeah, like I said, as much as I love to see that he doesn't seem phased, I would like to see some fire occasionally out of him, especially when you get yourself into a 20-3 hole. I don't really want to see my quarterback sitting blank faced on the bench on the sideline. I kind of want to see a little bit more fire out of him. And maybe, if his receivers are running the wrong route, which I've heard multiple times come out of Matt's mouth that they didn't execute correctly on a lot of their plays. Like, I want my quarterback a little bit fiery. Now, I'm not saying like the cure is to head down to Costa Rica and do some ayahuasca or to lock himself into a dark room for a week and see what happens. But it's going to be interesting to see how he evolves, how he kind of bounces back from this game, and what kind of Jordan Love we get in the playoffs for sure. It's gonna paint a pretty big picture of maybe what to expect in the future. But yeah, it's not a season that at all like we thought it would be. It's been, and maybe he'll come out that he's been dealing with something. I don't know. On his one scramble play where he picked up like 8 yards, he wasn't very fast in his scrambling ability. But I don't know. It's something to keep an eye on. I think he can get the job done, though. I do think he can get the job done.
One thing that people have to take into consideration, I understand he's been in the league longer than 2 years, but really he's in his second year as a starter. There's gonna be growing pains with that. the end of last season was great to see and fun to see. His kind of bounce back after the bye week this year and cutting down on the mistakes has been good to see, but I don't it's definitely not the last we're going to see of Jordan Love. Like, I mean, there's no way the Packers are moving away from him at this point. So,
We're
if
nowhere close to that.
no, not at all. So, don't give up hope on him. I'm not going to, even though I just laid out how it's been kind of a disappointing year from him this year, but I think it's all learning experience for him. This Packers team is the youngest team in the league still. They were the youngest team in the league last year, youngest team in the league this year. Like, they're all growing, they're all learning, and they're still 11-5 and going to
Well,
the playoffs.
and
Like,
that's exactly where I was going to go with it. Is that with a win on Sunday against Chicago, Packers end the season 12-5, which is a very respectable record. 9 times out of 10, that usually wins you the division. If anything, it does get you a like 5th seed lock by probably a game or two easily. But that's just not how the season has shook out with the NFC the in the league, and they're 5 losses. So came to Philadelphia, Vikings, Lions. It's been, it's no secret. It makes the headlines if you're at all a Packers fan, which I'm sure you are if you're still around and sticking around for the content, which, by the way, comment down below, like the video, subscribe, definitely do all that stuff. But in their 5 losses, they've lost to the Eagles by 5, the Vikings by 2, the Lions by 3, and the Vikings again by 2. And then they had that 1 10-point loss against the Lions at home where they lost 24-14. So their combined record, those 3 teams, 40-7. They're the cream of the crop in the NFC.
top 3 seeds in the NFC.
Exactly. So, and here's the thing. So with the Packers loss, the Commanders pulled off a victory on Sunday night. Updated playoff seedings now bumped us down to that 7th spot. We're going to talk a little bit about our Week 18 predictions in this episode, but Washington faces off against Dallas in a very winnable game for Washington to shore up that 6th seed. Packers would be the 7th seed entering the playoffs. In theory, they would have to go to Philadelphia and the team they lost to and beat them. In the second round, divisional round, they would either have to go to Minnesota or Detroit, whoever wins the division. And then in the third round, it's probably either Minnesota or Detroit. So we're going to have the 3 kryptonites for a Superman reference for the Packers season is essentially what's going to stop them from making a trip to the Super Bowl. And I kind of want to see it, quite frankly. I want the Packers to beat the Bears. I'm fine with the Commanders now beating Dallas, and I want to see our 7th seed have to face all 3 of these teams again and use that as their motivation. I think that is like the best case scenario for them, to know that they have to go through all 3 of these guys in order to get to the Super Bowl. And no team, I don't know what the statistic is. I've heard a bunch of crap being thrown around in the workplace today. It's very uncommon to lose 3 straight times to the same team in the season. So 2 of those games, the odds are in our favor, and then that Philadelphia game right off the bat. So can they do it?
I'm not going to say it's impossible.
No, nothing's impossible.
I'm not going to say it's impossible.
Do it.
I mean, these 3 teams that the Packers are going to have to get through to get to a Super Bowl are all very good. Honestly, the best team of the 3, I think, is the first one that the Packers are likely going to have to face, and it's the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they're arguably the best team in the NFC. They're not going to get the 1 seed. It'll be the Vikings or the Lions, but the Lions they're depleted. They're injured. I feel like that's going to catch up with them. I mean, they've still been winning games. They've still been putting up points, but I feel like in the playoffs, it's going to catch up with the Lions. And the Vikings, obviously we just saw the Vikings really kind of put it to the Green Bay Packers, but I still just have this feeling like the Vikings they're not going to get there. I don't think that I don't think that this is
history tell you that or something, or
maybe. there's no statistical or real analytical reasoning for this, but I just personally don't feel like the Vikings are going to go to the Super Bowl. It just,
Yeah.
Take the Packers out of the equation. Obviously, I want the Packers to go to the Super Bowl, but I mean, with the other two top teams in the NFC, I think it would be either the Lions or the Eagles that go, right?
Yep.
Maybe the Vikings make it to an NFC championship. Like, I don't think that's out of the question, but I don't think they beat the Eagles, honestly. That's who I think goes to the NFC championship if the Packers don't beat them first. But if the Packers win in the first round against the Eagles, I feel like everything's out the window. It could be anybody, right?
Right.
Because I feel like the Lions could lose in their first matchup because of their injuries. I feel like the Vikings could lose because they're the Vikings and they have a history of choking in the playoffs. So I can see there being an upset there. And at that point, who else you got? Rams, Bucks, Commanders, Packers.
I know.
Like, at that point, if Packers beat the Eagles, I think it could be anybody going to the Super Bowl for the NFC.
So this is a Packers Bears final thoughts video. It's plastered on our thumbnail, and we've yet to talk about it, and we're probably not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. But one thing confirmed, I mean, you look at the Chicago team, started the season 4-2. They've lost 10 straight games. They're now 4-12. They did say that they will play their starters on Sunday, and regardless, it's really a best case scenario for the Packers here in Week 18 because they're going to get a Chicago Bears team that has played Detroit tough. They've been in some pretty close games, even though their record has not shown that. And this is going to be an opportunity. Chicago's going to be hungry. Caleb Williams is going to obviously play and have a lot to say and prove and try to build on his experience and as being a better quarterback. And they would love nothing more, even if they finished 5-12. If they beat the Packers, it would be a win. It would be kind of it was a rebuilding year. It was a tough season. We lost our coach. Oh, yada, yada. But we beat Green Bay at Lambeau to finish out the season. That would be a huge moral victory for that entire organization. So I think we're going to get a really competitive Chicago Bears team. On the flip side, you have the Packers playing hot. Obviously, like, the mood in Green Bay right now in that locker room is pretty somber, and they got to get their shit together. There's my one curse word for the episode before they head to the playoffs. So here they are. They got to pick it up, get it together, and last home game of the season. There's no more games happening in Lambeau Field when you're the 7th seed. I was hopeful that they might get the 5th seed because they could have hosted like the Vikings or something in the NFC Championship game, but here we are. So that's kind of my take on the game. I think it's going to be a fight. It's going to be probably a pretty entertaining matchup. It's a noon kickoff, so nothing special about that. But you're going to get a good test against Chicago, regardless of their record. And I expect Green Bay to rebound pretty significantly after this Vikings game and that whole team to play very well and get their act together before they head in the playoffs.
Yeah, you talk about the Bears team being hungry for a win, as they always are against the Packers, but I feel like the Packers are going to be more hungry for this one after the loss to the Vikings and going into the playoffs. I feel like Matt LaFleur is going to want this team to be full steam ahead, hot going into the playoffs because they have a tough road ahead of them. Also, Caleb Williams has never played at Lambeau Field before. I feel like that's going to make a difference. I don't know if this game is as close as the last matchup with the Bears. In my mind,
not.
I feel like
Packers weren't even supposed to win that game last time. That was like a blocked field goal. Oh my gosh, we barely escaped that.
Yeah, I don't know. In my gut, I don't see that type of matchup again. I feel like the Packers run away with this one. Just the everything that's happened up until now with the Packers season and Caleb Williams and this Bears team, this pretty new Bears team. A lot of them probably haven't been to Lambeau Field in December before. I guess January, right? It'll be January by then. I don't know. I feel like Packers run away with this one, and
So, and
and put it. I was gonna say and put a stamp on the end of the season.
so when it comes to this Caleb Williams thing, so there's a pretty easy formula that teams have discovered on how to beat the Chicago Bears, and that is to blitz, blitz, blitz. It's call it my key to victory. I do have an X factor, but if I have a key to victory, they have a really hard time. Chicago does at stopping the blitz, and Caleb Williams really struggles when there's that much pressure coming at him. He only has 5 interceptions on the year, but he is like first in the league this season, I think, in sacks, and he's like fourth all time for most sacks in the season. So he's hanging on the ball. There were a lot of reports that came out from Chicago over this last week about how the game is moving too fast for Caleb Williams, and he's not really reading these defenses very good. So it could be this is kind of a new development from week 9, week 10 when we played him last time. That really, if you send pressure and you complicate your formations and whatnot, you can definitely keep Williams off with his back foot. And that seems like a really easy way for Green Bay to come away with a victory here. But if I'm going to pick an X factor, for me, I'm going to steal your thunder maybe, but it has to be Jordan Love. We talked about Jordan Love a little bit ago. This has to be a game that I see a little bit of fire, that he gets a little bit of redemption, plays lights out. Like, this is a game that I do want to see him throw 4 touchdowns and have 350 yards, because we have not seen that, and I've been okay with that. But this is the type of game where at home, coming off a very, very poor performance against Minnesota, if he can go lights out and have one of his best games of the season entering the playoffs, that would be just a big boost for his confidence and the rest of the team's confidence as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think a big game from Jordan Love is going to be momentum going into the playoffs. And naysayers, if that's what happens, if we see a big game from Jordan Love, naysayers can, they can talk all they want, but this Bears defense isn't bottom of the barrel. This Bears defense has played fairly decent most of the year. So if Jordan Love can carve them up and, put up some big numbers this last week, maybe put some of the naysayers, shut them up a little bit, shut up the naysayers a little bit about the way he's played this year, myself included. I talked about it earlier, how it's been kind of a disappointing season. That'd be a lot of fun to see. Kind of, so talking about X factors, what we want to see out of the Packers this last week of the season, the regular season. The Jordan Love pick is a good one, and I probably would have went with that one. But to kind of correlate with it, I really want to see Jaden Reed back, his name being announced over and over again.
I knew you were going to say that. As soon as you said it's correlated to Jordan Love, I'm like, oh, he's going to say Reed, because he's been quiet. He's been very quiet.
He's been quiet for weeks, and early in the season, he was the guy, and he's just been so quiet. I don't know if it's play calling. I don't know if there's an issue with him not getting open or something like that, but he's so electric, and he can change a game in an instant, and he's just been completely absent for most of the second half of the season. So I would like to see him get going again this week against the Bears. Again, going into the playoffs, let's get hot. Let's get some momentum. Give the team and the fans a little bit more of a fuzzy feeling going into some tough matchups in the playoffs.
Did you have a score prediction for this particular matchup? You even thought about it? It's Monday.
No, I really haven't thought about it, but I'm going to stick with my thought that I feel like the Packers are going to run away with this one. I'm going to go Packers 31, Bears 20.
20. Okay. I'm going to do 31-10. I'm going to say the defense plays a little bit better than that, but I do like that 31 score. And if Love's going to throw 4 touchdowns, then that means that it could possibly be a game that Jacobs does not get into the end zone, which he's on a 7-game streak. I guess it's a good point. No rushing touchdowns, though. That'd be something to see. All passing touchdowns in January. At
4 passing touchdowns to Josh Jacobs.
And a thought that came to me, and I've fallen victim to this thought many times, even throughout this episode, is that it's the teams that get hot entering the playoffs that are the most dangerous and tend to go the furthest. Well, why do we think that? Because we've had we've had hot teams enter the playoffs, and I'm talking. Have you watched the Rodgers Enigma documentary on
I
Netflix?
haven't. I know you
You
told
gotta
me to
watch.
watch at least a couple episodes. I have
Only
not
3
yet.
episodes. Definitely watch it because we'll want to talk about it at some point. But
Yeah.
they bring up this graphic of like the whole 2013, 14, 15, 16 like playoff exits and how we lost. And I mean, we've had Green Bay in particular has had teams trending in the right direction entering the playoffs, and it has not led to more Super Bowls or any more success in the playoffs. Really, what matters is do they show up on game day at the end of
Mhm.
it? So we can come off of this Vikings loss. Yeah, it would have been nice to get that as a boost of, momentum, if you will. And regardless of what happens on Sunday, we both think it's going to be a Green Bay victory, but it's really just going to be what team shows up in Philadelphia, in Detroit, in Minnesota, and that's going to determine who wins that game because when they are firing on all cylinders, they are just as good as the rest of these teams that we've been talking about, the teams that have beat them. They can get that good, but we have just not seen it, and we've seen it in all 5 of their losses that they're just not playing their best, and you can't do that. To quote Matt LaFleur, you can't do that against good teams. You can't get in the hole and claw back out. So that's what I got on that. That's what I got.
I like it.
So we're not going to do a full overtime episode, but we did want to talk a little bit about the rest of around the league, some light score predictions. There's some playoff implications for sure. Around, do you want to start AFC, NFC? Most of these are locked up, but
Yeah, I mean, we can finish up the NFC because that's pretty set in stone. AFC, there's a little more whole shenanigans that could go on.
yeah. So I don't even know why I'm bringing this up, but as of the time of recording right now, Detroit is up 38. No, pause on me.
31, 34-28.
There you go. With about 8 minutes left in the game, regardless of whether or not they win or lose this game, it's still for first place and the number 1 seed next week if they beat Minnesota. So that one's kind of out the window. Let me pull up the Week 18 slate of games. I mean, really, it boils down to that's a big one. Let's just talk about the one, Sunday Night Football, close out the season. Detroit, Minnesota, at Detroit.
At Detroit. Okay.
I've been foreshadowing or giving my gut reaction or instincts that Detroit is going to be the number 1 seed, but are they going to be the number 1 seed? It's going to be a hell of a game. You get one early playoff game before playoffs start.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's tough to say. Watching this Lions Niners game. I mean, the Niners have had quite a bit of struggles this season, and they came out hot against this Lions defense. Lions have to put up a lot of points to win because their defense is so depleted. So I would not be surprised if the Vikings win next week.
Yeah. I don't think I would either. It's just really hard for me to imagine a purple Viking emblem at the top of these.
I know.
Yeah, I don't even have to imagine it because they updated it on Monday, showing Vikings as the 1 seed, and that it's so weird to see.
It's
I
odd.
don't like it.
Well, and I mean, you remember our season predictions before the regular season started? Like we had the Vikings bottom of the barrel. Yeah, like what a surprise. And then even halfway through the season when they came out of their bye week and they lost a game, and I was like, well, just wait and see. This is what happened last time they started hot. That's okay. I'll keep talking. Yeah, I was wrong. I was not correct about the way the Vikings season was going to go. So, congratulations, Vikings fan. It's been a great year. Sorry to say it's probably going to end pretty early in the playoffs, but it's been a good year.
If there's one thing that we do for another Packers podcast is we keep receipts, right? When it came to Minnesota, our preseason predictions here. For the record, for Green Bay, let's just start from the top. Green Bay, I had at 12-5.
Wow.
You had Green Bay at 14-3. Detroit, I had at 10-7. I missed pretty badly on that one. You had them at 14-3. So that's Minnesota winning next week. For the Bears, I had them at 8-9. You had them at 6-11, and they fell even short of those standards coming from a Packers podcast. And then when it came to the Vikings, you are so correct. I had the Vikings at 4-13, and you had them at 3-14. We did not see this coming at all. But we're pretty accurate about Packers stuff. I'll tell you that much.
And the Lions.
The Lion. Or the Packers for me. I had them at 12-5.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm in a good mood. And I'm rolling with the punches right now.
Yes. Yeah. You knew exactly what was going to happen.
Nostradamus.
Well,
all right. So
if the Vikings had even come close to what our prediction was to start the season, the Packers are in a different position going into the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So that's thrown quite a wrench in things. Really, I mean, no, I don't think anybody really expected this out of the Vikings this year. You know, it was either going to be a rookie quarterback starting or Sam Darnold, who has struggled with every other team that he's played for.
Right.
So I don't think anybody really expected it. Honestly, I really think the Vikings' success has come down to coaching. Both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, the coaching has been phenomenal. The play calling has been incredible. I mean, they have one of the top 2 or 3 wide receivers in the league. And then they got Aaron Jones this year, which we know all about Aaron Jones. He's surprisingly stayed fairly healthy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he got injured in that game against the Packers, though, because there was a lot of Cam Akers towards the end of the game there. So
yeah,
that'll be interesting to see. You know, is he limited this week in practice going into the matchup with the Lions?
Yeah,
I think that makes a difference.
He finished 12 carries, 47 yards, and averaged 3.9 yards a carry, no touchdowns. Again, the Packers' rush defense it held up well. It's looked good. Our Achilles heel for many years is vastly improved when it comes to the rush defense. But because this is a glimpse of what overtime sort of is for those that don't always check out the overtime episodes, we do have to pick a winner of these matchups. So back to Minnesota, Detroit. Are you taking Minnesota?
Sure.
Because I'm not.
I'll take Minnesota. Okay. I'll take Minnesota. Derek, congratulations. I picked Minnesota for once. Don't expect it to happen again. Maybe ever again. But yeah, I'll take Minnesota this week.
I'll stick with Detroit. I will stick with Detroit as my pick. It's a coin flip. These guys played very close early on in the season. It came down to a last-second field goal, or as the clock expired. So either way, get past Philly and we'll head to Detroit or Minnesota. Isn't that great? Or will we? Because let's talk about the other one. Does Dallas at home have a chance of beating Washington in order for the Green Bay to shore up the 6th seed?
Yeah, I think there's a chance there.
I would think so.
The Cowboys, I don't know why, but the week they were officially eliminated from the playoffs, they all of a sudden decided to turn it on and start playing super well. Gosh, who did they play that week? It was the week of Christmas.
Yeah, so it was like their last 6 games, Dallas, they beat Washington once before, 34-26. That was at Washington. They beat the Giants. They lost by 7 to the Bengals. They beat the Panthers. You're probably thinking of the Buccaneers is who they beat.
Yeah, that game right there, they were officially eliminated, and all of a sudden their defense turned it on. Their defense looked incredible against a Bucs team that was hot. So yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I mean, they have nothing to play for, but which is not what I would expect from the Dallas Cowboys. I feel like the Dallas Cowboys is the type of team that once they're eliminated from playoffs, they'd all give up just because of the I don't know, the
Culture.
pride aspect of it
Yeah.
with Jerry
I
Jerry Jones, and they're supposed to be America's team, and they're already eliminated from playoffs. So what's the point? So yeah, I think the Cowboys could go beat the Commanders just to stick it to them.
I do think they can win. I don't think they will, though. That is Dallas. I'll be rooting for Dallas. I'll take
Yeah.
a 6 seed at the end of the day, but I think Washington clinched the playoffs by beating Atlanta. Atlanta still has a shot at making the playoffs too, but it's a pretty long shot with their loss to the Commanders. I do think I'm going to take Washington in the game. I just think it seems like they'll take care of business heading into the playoffs.
Just to have a little fun, I'll take the Cowboys.
All right. And then that leaves the Falcons playing the Panthers. I imagine we'll take Atlanta in that game. And okay. I mean, they have to, it's last week. So you think that they lose the Panthers and it's over. That's how they end their season. Okay.
I really
All
do.
right.
I
All
really
right.
do. I have been using ESPN's playoff machine that you sent me the link to, and I was playing with it at the end of last week, and I just feel like the Panthers are going to win this one. They're going to play what's the term I'm looking for? Not the upsetters, I don't know what term I'm looking for, but I just feel like Panthers going to be like, "No. We're
Like a,
we're not going to lay
like a
down."
bracket buster. Is
Yeah,
that your thing?
sure, a
Yeah.
bracket buster. I feel like the Panthers are going to come in and be like, "No, we're better than what we've shown, what our record shows. We're gonna come out here and stop you from making the playoffs." Atlanta Falcons.
So if Atlanta wins and the Bucks lose, Atlanta squeaks in at the 4th seed. If Atlanta wins and Tampa Bay wins, Tampa Bay stays at the 4th seed. But if your Carolina Panthers, yes, your Carolina Panthers, beat the Atlanta Falcons, and then it doesn't matter whether the Buccaneers win or lose. They are automatically the 4th seed in the NFL playoffs. So,
I also want Mayfield in the playoffs. I really do.
well, I think if there's any consensus, it's that Tampa Bay, who plays the Saints, I think we'll both take Tampa Bay in that one.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
regardless of what Atlanta does, we both have Tampa Bay winning the division, taking the 4th seed, which would have either Minnesota or Detroit heading to Tampa Bay in the wild card round. I kind of wish we had the same pick for Minnesota or Detroit so we can keep some of this stuff, synonymous with our playoff brackets, but that's neither here nor there. On the AFC side, Bengals need a couple miracles to make their way into the playoffs. I think everyone in NFL Nation outside of Broncos fans and Miami fans are hoping that the Bengals make the playoffs because Joe Burrow has looked not only great in the last couple of weeks, this entire season, he's played great. They snuck one out on Thursday night. I think, no, was it
MVP-esque, honestly.
Saturday night? They squeaked one out against the Denver Broncos. That was a crazy good game on Saturday afternoon.
So, okay. Funny story about that Bengals game. So Saturday, we had Christmas last week, and it's been a long few weeks with the kids being sick, and then Christmas. Obviously, we had fun at Christmas, but it's just been a lot. So my in-laws were nice enough to take our kids. They offered to take them overnight
Nice.
on Saturday for a sleepover to give my wife and I a date night, and which was the same night as that Bengals game was on. We got to the restaurant and we sat down and started looking at the menus, and the waitress came over and I said, "Hey, do you guys happen to have the NFL Network? Because it wasn't on the TVs yet." My wife was not happy about that.
Yeah.
She was
date night.
She was not happy.
See,
But
my wife always says, like, God love her, she assesses the situation, and whatever chair is facing a TV with sports on, she'll be like, "Do you want to sit there?" And I'll be like, "Sure, I'll take that."
that's nice.
Yeah.
But
So
we had a very nice date night. It was fun.
Good. I'm gonna have one of those
regardless.
New Year's Eve. We're kidsless, so I'm sure.
Nice.
I don't know. I don't even know if I'll be up at midnight, but I'm gonna enjoy my evening for sure, one way or the other. Back to
Yeah.
football though. So, in order for the Bengals to make the playoffs, they have to beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. Possible? You like that? Are you taking Pittsburgh or are you taking the Bengals?
I'll take the Bengals.
I'm gonna take okay. So I'll take the Bengals as well, just for entertainment purposes. And then they would need the Broncos to lose. The Broncos play the Chiefs, who already clinched the number 1 seed.
They are.
So
Patrick Mahomes is not playing.
okay, so that one becomes a lot more challenging for the Chiefs to win.
I still feel like the Chiefs win though.
It's in Denver.
I don't know. I just feel like the Chiefs still win. Like
Okay.
for some, I feel like they're like, oh well, we don't need Patrick Mahomes to win. We have a good team outside of Patrick Mahomes. Like I feel like they're still gonna pull out a win somehow.
So by some miracle, the Chiefs still pull out a victory without like half their roster or their starters playing. Then Miami needs to lose to the Jets.
I can see it happening.
It's gonna take a lot. It's gonna take a lot for that to happen. For
Bengals
me,
are going to the playoffs.
okay. So we'll both take Cincinnati. I'm fine with that. You're gonna take the Chiefs over the Broncos. For entertainment purposes, let's just say I take the Chiefs as well. I do not see the Dolphins losing to the New York Jets. So in that scenario,
Is it in New
Miami
York?
it is.
Tua can't play in the cold.
So Miami
If he plays,
Miami would be the 7th seed, or Denver would be the 7th seed if Denver wins. But yes, the Bengals need a slight miracle, and you're taking the Jets and the Chiefs.
Joe Burrow's going to the playoffs.
All right. I'm going to put Miami in the playoffs. I'll give you the Chiefs over the Broncos, but I don't think that's such a dumpster fire.
Honestly, that's surprising to me that
I know.
you'll give me Chiefs over the Broncos, but not Jets over the Dolphins. That's a little surprising, honestly.
Yeah, the Cardinals season ended weeks ago, so I can't pick the Cardinals anymore as my non-Packers team. So there we have it. Christian has the Bengals in the playoffs as the 7th seed, both Miami and the Broncos losing. I have Miami as the 7th seed. I'm going to go that route with it. Now we'll wrap it up. So you're looking at
how crazy is it that the Dolphins still have a shot at the playoffs at this point?
Right. So in the wild card, we'd be looking at, in your scenario, the Bengals versus the Buffalo Bills, first round wild card. Hell of a game.
Yeah.
Be a good game. Pittsburgh at Baltimore, which I would think Baltimore takes care of business there. And then the Chargers at Houston, more than likely. On the NFC side of things, you have the Vikings as the number 1 seed. Let's just roll with that scenario. We did take Washington. I don't know. Then it gets messy because we have different picks. Anyways, why don't you guys tune in next week when it's all finalized? Keep an eye out for our predictions. Last week of the NFL season, the regular season. We've almost we've gone through it. We've gone through it.
It's come up so fast. Why the season has gone by so fast?
This is when it gets fun, though. You know, as Packers fans, we're fortunate enough that like when it's playoff time, like this is kind of when our season starts. Just hopefully it doesn't end right away.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't want to. I mean, I don't want to make any predictions on what the end of the Packers season looks like before the end of this week because there's a lot that can happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Dallas could beat the Commanders. I mean, really, that's the only thing that changes anything. Honestly,
yeah, it's the difference between us going to Philadelphia or us going to Los Angeles.
Right. And I like us going to Los Angeles a lot better than us going to Philly, right?
Yeah. Yep. And then you have either Minnesota or Detroit heading to Tampa Bay, which that's that Baker Mayfield. What will he do? He's a dangerous
Right.
fellow.
Yeah. That's what
Dangerous
I
fellow.
like that too. I like that
Will he?
too. I like the Baker Mayfield, upsetting one of these top teams.
Yeah. It's doable. It's possible. Any given Sunday.
Shit could
Just
get
show up.
crazy.
Just show up on game day. That's all I'm asking for you, Green Bay. You
Yeah.
can do whatever you want the rest of the week, but when it's game day, I show up. Christian shows up. 50 million Packers fans show up every game day. I just need the players to do that.
Did you see before the Packer Viking game this last week? Did you see that Packers fans had bought? Gosh, I think it was a majority.
71%.
Tickets.
Yeah.
That did not seem like that. Like I didn't hear. I mean, that stadium was pretty loud cheering for the Vikings. So
yeah,
that was interesting. I was excited when I saw that. I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's more of a neutral field environment, and we don't got so much noise when the Packers are on offense. But yeah, it was not. It was still all Vikings fans cheering. It was that stupid horn blowing all the time.
Yeah. You know what? It is cool though when it's third down. They do that like War of the Worlds sound, like I'm not going to do that impression again. I think that's pretty cool. There's only one true way to silence a crowd though, and that is to get up on them fast and shut them the hell up. That's the only tried and true approach to winning on the road, is to take the crowd out of it. But
yeah,
so this video's posting on Thursday just as normal. So I will wish you a Happy New Year's, even though it will already be 2025 when this video posts. Have a
Happy New Year, everyone.
And we will see you next week for sure. It's playoff football time next week, and we're not even gonna recap the Bears game. It's gonna be all playoff talk at that point. So
yeah, nothing matters after this week. Nothing matters. It's all records are 0-0. Anything can happen.
So everyone enjoy it. Hopefully you have a good start to the new year. Enjoy your week 18 football. We'll be back next week. Click the like button, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. An hour and 5. This is our longest video of the season when it comes to the regular episodes, but we condensed a little bit of our OT into it. Check us out on Facebook. Look at us for TikToks. I'll try to get some of those made on New Year's Day and get those posted throughout the rest of the week. And as always, Christian and I will see you on the internet. Thanks for watching, and go Pack up.
Go Pack, go.